whereas we might see a 80-20 split of maybe not even that low or that high in the US in terms of credit card usage, in Germany it will be probably reversed.
Ignition sequence start. 3, 2, 1.
Boom, Christian. Thanks for coming on the show, man. Appreciate it. All right, dude, the accent. Let's start there. Where are you from?
I'm from the UK.
We should have just got you to talk and then we'd have been like, what's his accent?
Yeah, we should have. Yeah, okay. I'm from the UK. I grew up like 100 miles outside of London.
Because sometimes you sound Canadian even. Yeah, it's so crazy.
I don't know. Maybe I'm just trying to appeal to a broader audience. I don't know.
Good job, man. It's like this blend.
It's branding.
But did you spend time in San Francisco?
Not a significant amount of time.
Okay.
And certainly not until I was at least sort of like 18, 19. Okay. So it wouldn't have rubbed off significantly.
Founder of Paddle, you've been doing that since 2013?
Yeah, 7 years.
7 years. And then, but before that, Thiel fellow, like Peter Thiel.
Yeah.
Which is that the whole don't go to university, I'll give you money instead?
Yeah.
Let's start there. We'll get to Paddle.
Okay.
So that caused a big kerfuffle in the whole world. I think it's interesting. And I knew a few other guys, actually a young kid, I forget his name, but he was from the UK as well. What did he end up doing? Anyways, he was like 15 or 16. What was the offer? How did it work? How did you get that? How did you become a Thiel fellow?
I'm pretty sure I'm allowed to talk about this. So we'll see. Yeah. Basically, I got a call one day. I was I dropped out of school when I was 16 anyway and started building my first business. So I think I got a call when I was about 18, 19. And I'd just been in the Forbes like 30 under 30. And I get a call one day. I'm in like an Uber. I get a call one day, which is just like, this is, I think, like Allison from the Thiel Foundation. Peter Thiel would like to meet you.
Did you know who he was?
I knew who he was. Like, I was a big, like, PayPal, like, kind of whole story, Elon Musk, like, all that stuff.
So you knew.
Yeah. Like to meet you. And then it was like a Wednesday. And it was like, we booked you a flight on Friday. Like, you're coming, kind of thing. I was just like, okay, yeah, sure.
And so you're in London or?
Yeah.
You're in the UK?
Yeah.
Wow.
So I hang up the call. They email me some stuff. They email me, like tickets and sort of like an agenda thing. And it turns out that it was like this kind of like pitch day, demo day.
So there's other kids, other founders there.
Yeah. So I think usually you apply. And there's this like whole process, and they have this big thing about, they get sort of like 4,000 or 5,000 applications a year and 20 people get in. And I think sort of they had gone through sort of the period of, so the foundation had been around the fellowship had been around for, I would say, 3 or 4 years at this point. So they'd gone through a few cycles. So I think they were really honing down like what they like in a person in this program. And it was sort of less of still the like big idea, I want to change the world, kind of all that stuff, but that mixed in with a little bit of traction, like you're on your way a little bit. So I think they had to supplement these applications with kind of people that they would kind of outreach to and say, okay, this person's actually doing something, like let's invite them in. So I went there for this demo day type thing. It was like, you're going to have to get up for 2 minutes and pitch.
What was your company at the time?
It was Paddle.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. You're going to have to get up for 2 minutes and pitch one slide. You're allowed one slide, that's it. Do your 2 minutes in front of the 50 or 60 other people.
Cool. And for those watching, Paddle is a subscription management system? Billing?
So we build a SaaS commerce platform, which is everything from subscription management, payments, taxes, sort of all of the boring back office shit that nobody actually wants to deal with when they're building a SaaS business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. So in that space, Chargeify, Recurly, ChargeBee, I mean, some of these came way past you, but that kind of...
Yeah, so it's similar to those, just with all of the finance commerce stuff also baked in.
Cool. And what would be examples of finance commerce type stuff?
So all of like the payment stack, banking, for how you handle...
Oh, you actually take the transaction as well. So Stripe. Yeah. Oh, wow. Cool.
And instead of plugging something like Avalara or TaxJar or something in to help you calculate taxes, we'll collect the taxes, file them, and remit them on your behalf, so you never have to touch a dime of tax revenue ever again.
Boom. That's really cool. Yeah. Strong value prop. So pretty advanced, I think, 7 years ago. So you get up, you pitch that.
Yeah.
What happens?
So we had a bit of traction. We were doing, I think, like 30 or 40K MRR at the time. Maybe a little bit north of that. And kind of, there was very little feedback, like, in the room. I basically did that, went to dinner with, like, all of these folks, and then went home. And then 2 weeks later, I get a call, and it's like, you've been accepted. You have to sign some stuff. You get $100,000 over 2 years, no equity, paid out, I think, quarterly.
Why did he do this? Didn't want equity?
No, don't want equity, don't want anything. You have to sign a contract that basically says...
you're not allowed to tell anybody what happened.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm going to get a at $100,000 immediately after this.
If you do, we'll so funny.
So basically you have to sign a thing that says for at least the duration of the 2 years that you're in, that you're a Thiel fellow, that you won't go to like university, college, sort of anything like that. And if you're currently enrolled, you have to drop out or at least take like a leave of absence or whatever.
So their point of view, and this is your perspective, is that they wanted to prove that, and I think it's interesting. So they're essentially saying, here's a sample set, but it was highly curated.
Yeah.
Here's a sample set of people that we gave $200,000, $100,000,
$100,000 over 2 years.
Yeah, and here's where they're at now. So it was better for them not to go to university, but I guess technically that wasn't really the case.
So I think the rough thesis, and this is my words, not theirs.
Yeah.
Disclaimer,
all that stuff.
Is that why would you go to college, spend $200,000, get $200,000 in debt, enter like the workforce, especially if you're like entrepreneurial minded, you want to go start something anyway.
Yeah, and you need the capital and the resources to do that. Not start off with a $200K hole in the ground.
Yeah, exactly. And sort of the extent to which you're going to learn stuff. You're going to learn how to take good notes. You're going to learn how to be good in meetings. You're going to learn how to maybe give a good presentation. You might learn some of these fundamental bits, but actually sort of when you talk to people, like 90% of what they learn is by failing at it, trying it, like iterating over it. So the rough thesis is, what if instead of people entering this environment of going to start a business with like 200K, like negative 200K, they start positive 100K, don't have to worry about things like living and living expenses and things like that. That's primarily what the $50,000 a year for 2 years is you don't have to worry about rent and food and eating.
Yeah.
If you want to go out and raise money, go out and raise money, but this is like an investment in you.
Basic
you
Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You get that
cover
covered.
that stuff off. Like, what can these people do if they're given the two of those years that they would usually spend in college, given those to just go and build some stuff?
And what did most, like, there's 20 people, have they continued this? Is the Thiel fellowship still?
Yeah. So they still they've changed it to be like more of a rolling kind of thing.
Okay.
So they kind of accept people in batches throughout the year rather than being like this big 20 people a year in the summer go through it.
Okay, they might take 5 people a quarter or something.
Something like that. And there have been some like huge like stories out of it. So
such as
Beam, like the Twitch competitor that was sold to Microsoft, was a Thiel fellow. Ethereum. Like,
really?
Yeah, Vitalik was.
Yeah, Vitalik. I know his dad.
Yeah, it was
Dimitri.
That's crazy. Was
Canadian.
a Thiel fellow.
Good dude.
Yeah. Oyo Rooms.
Don't know that one.
So like an Indian hotel startup raised like $3 billion, largest independent hotel chain in the world.
Oh wow! So he's got some real good.
Yeah, me obviously.
Yeah, for sure. Paddle, man, huge.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about Paddle. Yeah. Fun fact, Flixel, Phil, who started the company, is from my hometown, and I saw they were a customer of yours.
Yep.
What are, like, tell us where the company's at today, kind of customers you work with, feature sets. What does Paddle look like today?
Yeah, so going 7 years, we've raised about $35 million, 150-ish people, about 14 million ARR. And about 2,000 SaaS businesses run on us, and kind of it's a real spectrum.
Yeah.
So we have everybody from kind of the people trying to start out doing a couple of grand a year, alongside their jobs trying to make this work, to businesses doing 50, 60, 100 million ARR. And sort of primarily SaaS, have a bunch of companies, some of which are here, who run on us. like skewed mostly B2B on the smaller side, and then B2C on the large customer side.
Gaming
right now.
side, is that part?
No
of it?
gaming, no gaming.
I seen
content.
you a long time ago pitch it, and it was like apps and games.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so you did pivot.
We'd
around.
narrowed. So the idea initially was, and I've given a talk on this before, was like I think the thing that a lot of founders do, which is like this thing looks a lot like these other things. Let's group them all together and like not focus. So to me, like the reason I started Paddle is I started a software business when I was 14, grew it to like 4 million in revenue. Realized I was spending way more of my time, this was like 17, way more of my time actually dealing with all of this other shit that wasn't building a product and speaking to customers and growing. I was spending a load of time on stuff that was taxes, growing internationally, had 200,000
payment gateways, all
yeah.
that, crazy stuff.
So started doing that, and then kind of was like, got obsessed with that as a problem set. Founded Paddle, started trying to solve that problem.
Did you have paddle.com from the beginning?
Yeah. That's
Good
a fun
stuff.
story.
Okay.
We can maybe get into that.
All right.
So it started doing that, but kind of software to me looked like content, looked like downloadable stuff, looked like games.
Yeah.
And then you try and be all things to all people, and ultimately how do you add a ton of value in that, especially when you're building a product. This core set of infrastructure we were building around taxes and payments and things like that was repeatable, but the tools that a SaaS business needs alongside that are very, very different.
Different than gaming, yeah. And how long did you guys go down that path before you narrowed it down? Is it a couple of years?
Couple of years. So we started in August 2012, really launched early 2013. By the beginning of 2014, we'd kind of been like, okay, it's software, it's SaaS. It's sort of primarily like the B2B, B2C mix on that we weren't sure about. And then by the end of that year, it was like, okay, B2B is where we want to be. We're going to still support B2C, but sort of in terms of focus, it's probably
What's the TAM for you, or how big do you think the B2B SaaS market is? Like how many companies would you put?
We think roughly about 75,000 to 100,000 companies.
Global in the world.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I talked to Patrick Campbell, Nathan Lack about this.
Yeah.
We've got it pegged around 30, maybe.
I was about to caveat. There's about we think there's about 25,000 that we would actually
want as customers,
want to sell to. Hopefully, that I think there are a lot of those businesses that might fall into the category of like the indie hackers style businesses.
Yeah.
And then there are a lot north of like the Adobes and people like that of the
they're
world.
rocking the big guys
different.
or custom stuff.
Yeah.
And in regards to how does your pricing work then if you can work with a 2,000 MRR type SaaS and 100 million? How does the structure work?
So we take a transaction fee. We don't take a monthly fee or anything like that. No minimums. Sort of 30-day, no minimum contract. Sort of.
Damn, 14 million ARR on just fees?
Yeah. And the reason that we did that was two things. Like one, we want to be directly aligned with these businesses. Two, it means our business gets modeled like a SaaS business anyway, because it's the fee is all on recurring revenue. But ultimately, we don't actually see our value as solving all these operational pains. It's sort of how can we help these businesses grow faster?
Don't every other SaaS billing company charge a monthly plus fee?
Every single one that doesn't handle payments, yeah.
Oh, because you handle payments.
Yeah.
Got it.
And all of the payment stuff that you'll ever...
So that's your freemium pretty much, all the infrastructure stuff.
Yeah.
It's like we do all this for free and you just pay us for a fee.
Yeah.
Dude, that's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it takes people a while to get their head around it. But the thing that it means is when we give advice, so when we say you should change your pricing or you should do this thing to
they got to listen because it's like, look, we're only going to win if we can get your MR up.
Exactly. It gets that, like, there is none of this stuff of like, oh, it's going to increase the number of invoices or the number of tracked customers or whatever. So you're going to move to the
higher plan.
the pro plan or whatever.
Yeah.
Everything is 100% kind of aligned.
Yeah. Success fees.
Yeah.
And what have you learned? So, in SaaS, there's this thing called expansion revenue. And, ideally we get to a point where we get negative churn. And revenue churn. How do you help companies do that? What do you see as best practices? How does your product consult to help them figure out maybe their value metric? Or how do you help SaaS companies with pricing and revenue optimization?
Yeah. So I think this all starts with like, we have a weird, horrible marketing slogan. It's actually not horrible. I quite like it, which is like your billing stack is holding you back. And
billing stack is holding you back.
Yeah.
Dude, you got to
And-
hire some like SoundCloud rapper to do a song, man.
Yeah, I'm gonna get on that
Yeah.
right after this.
Yeah, Fiverr.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And basically that's the premise of like the way like the SaaS is more competitive than it's ever been. Like it's cheaper than ever to start a SaaS business or a SaaS
Yeah.
product.
Upwork, spec, build me something.
Absolutely. And infrastructure costs are basically non-existent.
Nothing.
Like what we previously spend 10 years ago in a server room at 2 a.m.
Yeah.
racking stuff
Full
up.
metal.
Yeah, you do with an Amex and AWS.
Yeah.
So like the expectations of the customers of these businesses are way higher than they've ever been. They expect these like consumer grade experiences in B2B. They expect these consumer grade experiences across every touch point, be it customer support, customer success, through to, and we think one of the key pieces that gets neglected in this process is sort of that CRM stuff around billing. So around how does the customer buy it originally? How do they kind of renew it? How does their like ongoing billing relationship with a kind of SaaS business change over time? And actually, when you look at how these businesses today, how these SaaS businesses are achieving that, they're buying 12 different things and like duct taping it all together and then hoping that sort of it's all going to work out.
Yeah.
So we think fundamentally you have to have
So we're talking like billing tool, analytics tool, like
payment
user
processing
experience of
thing.
payment processing. Yeah.
Yeah. So we think one, you have to get all of that stuff in order first. Like you have to, in order to be able to experiment with pricing, you have to be able to experiment with pricing.
And you're saying when it's holding them back, it's because they can't experiment. And I remember talking to a client the other day and he was like, okay, so you now want me to create these new packages and he's freaking because he's got to pay for development cycles.
Yeah.
And that's what you're saying is like,
Don't do
your
that.
tool is easy to, you can create new plans and packages and you're good to go.
Yeah, or you can optimize pricing in different regions, support different currencies, whatever it is.
You guys change it per region.
Yeah, whatever you want to do. Tick a box. Like if you want to support like PayPal alongside credit cards because you have that kind of you're launching in
customer
Germany.
segment, yeah.
Like whatever it is. Like even B2B in Germany, like non-credit card, like that should be a tick box that you check. You shouldn't even have to
Non-credit card.
Yeah, you shouldn't even
Germany,
have to,
they don't use credit cards?
percentage is much lower than it is in US.
Really?
Yeah.
Like what is it? A third?
So we see
Like what would we find interesting for us,
So
essentially
in
North
the US,
Americans that we just
yeah.
think everybody does this.
Yeah, in the U.S., sort of per capita, there are more credit cards than there are people. Like it's
That
it's
I believe.
It's greater
I got
than
about
one.
6 in my pocket.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In Germany, that's not the case. So maybe you have debit cards for sure. Credit less so. Local payment wallets, direct from bank, like things like that.
EFT,
PayPal.
okay, yeah.
Like all of that. So whereas we might see a 80-20 split of maybe not even that low or that high in the US in terms of credit card usage. In Germany, it will be probably reversed. In the
80 local cards or bank wires or whatever. And so you guys support the ability for like POs and stuff, so like people can wire it into bank.
We launched a product last year. Actually, it was earlier this year, which was an invoicing product for sales teams because we think the same problems exist for
huge.
sales teams as well.
Yeah,
So-
like deal rooms and contracts and redlining.
So,
and then,
so what we think a bunch of people do the like e-signing stuff really well. Don't want to touch that. A bunch of people do the like proposal CRM aspect of it really
like a
well.
Proposify kind of thing. Yeah.
But invoices, you talk to these companies and they're doing their like mid-market enterprise sales. They're trying to scale that up, building inside sales team for the first time.
Yeah.
Most of that stuff is invoiced. Most of that stuff is wire transfer. And what they're doing is they're making this stuff in like Pages or Word, creating a PDF. Someone in the finance team has this job, sending it to the sales team. The sales team then goes and sends it out. Maybe when that gets a pain, they buy a tool for it. Then it's someone's job to manually go through the bank statement and check if anybody's paid and mark it off. And it's like this 2-week cycle. And then when you want to do it internationally, you have to go and set up companies and bank accounts and all this stuff. So we were just like, we have all this infrastructure. We built an invoicing product, links directly into Salesforce.
Do you have bank accounts in every country?
Yeah, pretty much.
Wow.
And then basically what you do is in Salesforce, you do your proposal, DocuSign, whatever, hit a button, pulls all the data from the CRM, generates tax compliant invoice, generates a bank account for that invoice in whatever country it's in, localizes it for currency, language, like the legal stuff. Customer pays it, we pay the taxes on it automatically, reconcile it, send you the money, update the CRM, do all that stuff. You remove like at scale, you remove like half a dozen people in headcount and tooling and everything.
Easily.
Yeah.
I was at an event in Prague and I was talking to local entrepreneurs there, and they were saying one of their biggest challenges is around just dealing with currencies in every country. And so, I mean, what are your thoughts around people wanting to sell into the States if they're in Europe, or do you think that it's better to focus on the local market? If somebody's in Europe, what's your thoughts on scale there first, or maybe go to the US first? Or
I think get product market fit first, and sort of, I'm quite a fan of doing that in whatever way you can. Like if you have customers in the US who are willing to pay you, sell to them. If they're buying the same product, kind of you're working towards the same value metric, sort of building the same thing. Maybe there are reasonably few products, I think, these days that have such significant like localization challenges. Like if you're building a CRM or like a collaboration tool or sort of any of these things, marketing automation tool or whatever, sort of the product that the people want to use in the US is roughly the same as the product people want to use in Europe. There are some edges to it, but so I think get to product market fit, double down on the markets that are working, kind of build, if it's sales driven, build local sales.
So it doesn't matter
presence.
if it's local in Europe, just get to product market fit, and then maybe just find a country like that's big enough to like.
Yeah, Germany's a good one. Yeah. Germany's a good one where it's like it makes sense to focus on as a market because there are so many like local dynamics of how people buy, be it language, sort of like more of a focus on compliance and regulation and things like that. You have to have all those boxes ticked if you want any kind of deal of note in those countries. I feel like
and there's a lot of B2B. Like I just feel Germany's business. The brand of Germany.
Yeah, for sure.
Head office of a lot of. Businesses. Recently I had Jason Reichel from GoNimby talk about RevOps. I know that's an area you guys support people on. Why is it such an exciting topic right now? People are talking RevOps. What is that? What does it mean to you, and how do you guys help clients with it?
Yeah. So I think it's broader than the stuff that we do. So I encapsulate things like, to some extent, things like sales ops and things like that in RevOps as well. But I think there's this big topic that nobody has spoken about for a long time, which is sort of everybody speaks about product. Everybody speaks about sales and marketing. Everybody speaks about like all of these things, how those things need to work together, engineering, kind of growth, all of those things. Nobody really speaks about the glue that fits those two parts of an organization together, especially like the go-to-market to product, sort of the mesh in the middle, which people fill with tools and people and everything else. But just as when you look at a funnel, like when you look at a sales funnel, you have kind of the very top of funnel, maybe you're building kind of like awareness, inbound, whatever it is, and you have like the actual sales portion of the funnel, these people interested, are they doing a demo, are we getting close to contract? And then you have the kind of inverse funnel, the other side of customers using the product, how do we expand
onboarding?
How do we expand them over time? So we talk about that a lot, and we talk about this idea that you want to, optimize first stage of the funnel, get more leads in. It's going to do much better over time. But the thing that we don't talk about so much is if you increase each stage of that funnel by say 10%, like you end up like doubling the business. But a lot of the components of doubling that funnel kind of happen in the middle, which is, okay, how do I go from sort of customers' interest in the product? We've done a great job at product marketing. We've sold it really well. The stuff in the middle is like kind of all the nuts and bolts of like, how is it priced? How do they pay for it? What are the contract terms? How do we handle renewals? Like all of that stuff. And ultimately, like I always say the best time. When
you say in the middle, you mean the middle of the bow tie?
Yeah. I always say like the best time to pitch somebody on buying paddle is the first time that they lose a customer because they just can't accept money from them. Like the first time that you were this close to signing a $100,000 deal in Germany, or you're a European business doing your first $50K deal in the US, and it stumbles at the last point because you don't have like an ACH bank account that they can pay into, or you invoice the customer in Germany and the invoice isn't compliant and it spooks them, or like whatever the thing is. Or you get a bill for taxes, or you realize that you've just paid like 4% of a $250K contract in like foreign exchange fees that you didn't even know about. Like all of these things, like those are the real pain points that kind of, if you're losing 4% of this revenue to that thing and then a few points of conversion to this other thing, and sort of like it really adds up. And everybody's talking about, okay, like how do we get more people from this stage of the funnel, this stage of the funnel? And absolutely you should do that. But there are all of these other like low hanging fruit optimization things that you should be doing
at the transaction,
around transactional stuff, revenue operations, expansion, like all of the kind of administrative bits that nobody wants to focus on. I get it. Like it's not cool. It's not sexy. It's sort of, it just is. But they're all stuff that all of these businesses have to do. And if they're not optimizing for them, they are losing money.
There's real costs involved.
Yeah.
And what have you learned, now you've been building this. So the first company you built, the 4 million, was that a software company as well?
Yeah. It was invoicing software for freelancers.
Got it. Yeah. So like FreshBooks and that space. And then, with Paddle, what have you learned about building software companies and having so many software companies as customers? What are, if somebody's looking for the areas to focus on their business to scale up, what if you were sitting down with a friend or a new customer and they asked you that question, what would you advise them to go look at?
I think there's all the like cliche normal stuff that people talk about, like kind of building culture, hiring, kind of all that stuff. But I think there are some pieces in that are kind of more nuanced than like people realize. So like assuming that you get the business to like, I don't know,
100 million plus.
Yeah.
Or no, sorry, a million plus.
A million plus. You got 15, 20 people.
Yeah.
Like I actually think that that's sort of the most treacherous sort of point when you're adding more people to that organization. It's sort of like, it's the awkward point where everybody talks about, we're going to be a flat organization and we're not going to have hierarchy. And
I just talked to this Peldy from Balsamic.
Yeah.
That was his like mission. And then he's like, wow, my employees are pissed off because I don't do performance reviews and they don't know who they report to.
And then they churn out the back because they have no idea. They're like, I'm a designer. What does that actually mean? Like, how do I get a pay rise?
Yeah.
Like, where am I going to be in 6 months' time? And it's sort of, and it's like, I feel like that's the most treacherous point because you have to deliberately make that step to be like, we're going to hire some managers. Or like, we're going to hire somebody in the exec team. Or like, we're going to do these things.
Yeah.
And I think for me, I'd never had a job before. Like I didn't know what good looked like. I didn't know what bad looked like.
You never seen it, yeah.
Like, and I was really reluctant to doing that. I was like, managers. So they're basically people who do nothing. Like
nothing productive.
Yeah, they don't actually do any work. They go and sit with people and talk to them and have nice conversations. And I'm like, that's bullshit. Like, why are we paying them for doing this? And then you realize that, they're trying to make everybody else happy, the people who actually do the work happy and focused in the right direction. So everybody isn't pointing in 6 different ways and
pulling on the
kind
rope.
and it's chaos. So I think that my biggest sort of thing would be that I don't know where it is, 20 people, 30 people, whatever, it doesn't really matter, but like focusing on that, like how you build like middle management, how you hire in the right layer of people who manage the people, and then they thus kind of become responsible for the new people that you add. I think everybody talks about like the unicorn superstar hire who's going to be great, or the key member of the exec team who's going to come in and he's done it before.
Sales,
yeah. But actually, I feel like the most important hires are the first couple of people that you hire in those, like the first engineering manager you hire, or the first kind of, I don't know,
product manager,
whatever it is. It's sort of, I think those are the most important people. So like actually focusing on that. Everybody says that hiring is really important, but I feel like if you actually drill into that, if they spend 60% of their time on hiring, I could probably guess that the majority of that time is spent with the kind of individual contributors or the exec team. Mm-hmm. It's the bit in the middle that kind of gets forgotten about, but I feel like they're the most important hires in the business.
And how do you recommend, or how did you do it for yourself, kind of like rank order, prioritize those hires? Like when you get to that 12, 20, and that to me, I think 12, it depends on the business, but that's where it starts to get like, culture is important. Values, you need values, because if not, people are making decisions on your behalf and you're like, that was bad. Why'd you do that? Well, I didn't give you any instructions. Okay, I get it. But what do you think founders, where should they start to hire? How should they think about hiring that executive leadership team?
Yeah. I think it's really tough. I fucked it up a couple of times.
Yeah, sounds like it. And this is what I've discovered. People give advice for the things that we usually did wrong. Yeah.
I think sort of whatever amount of time that you're like earmarking to spend on that, double it. Because like these roles aren't supposed to be easy to hire. and if they feel easy to hire, then maybe
You probably got the wrong person.
Like maybe you get really lucky.
Yeah. But you're saying proactively source those specific roles.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And sort of whatever you feel like about exec recruiters or things like that, sort of
get over it.
Yeah. Use them. Like
if they're going to bring candidates,
yeah,
you need candidates.
And especially if you like, I feel like that is you can do all that work yourself, but like that is it's time expensive, but also like the recruiters are an accelerant.
Yeah.
All they're doing is saving you time. Like, and yeah, you're paying them and you might loathe paying them because it's the same thing of managers of like, what do they do? But actually you're paying them for time, and it's time that you probably should be spending on it. Mm-hmm. So I think kind of, just invest in it as a process. Define those, even if you don't write them down, define yourself, like what values and more behaviors and things like that. How would these people make decisions? How would they deal in a crisis? Like what would they do if like one of their people in their team did something that we don't like? Kind of model that out and try and figure out like what kind of decisions you'd want them to make, or at least behaviors you'd want them to show in that process, and then figure out how you ask questions that sort of eke that information out.
And your team, is most of your customers in the States or in Europe?
About 20% are in the States, about 30% in Europe.
Okay.
And then we have quite a lot everywhere else. So
around the world.
Australia's big, Japan's big, Brazil, India, kind of everywhere.
And then what have you learned about being a British company, in SaaS? Because you see a lot of the Zendesk and others that I know moved to the Valley. What are your thoughts on that, and how have you been able to?
I think a lot of it is like sort of rhetoric that's just like reasonably unhelpful. It's just like, who gives a shit?
Yeah,
like
build a business.
Build a business. Like
I'm like that. I'm Canadian, so I'm like,
build a good
product. You got to move there. I'm like, no, you don't.
Build a good product. Focus on customers. Maybe you'll have like some customer calls or demos that are like slightly later in the evening or like early in the morning. It's like, who cares? Like build a business, figure out what works. If you have a big concentration of customers in one area, so like we have a reasonable concentration of customers of like the 20% of our business that's in the US, good concentration of its East Coast. So next month we're opening an office in New York.
Yeah.
So like do it when it makes sense though. I feel like so many people, and I hate the whole, like we're going to be in Silicon Valley because it's Silicon Valley and we're going to change the world. And it's sort of like, you realize that sort of you're basically taking a thing that's hard enough anyway, which is building a company,
so
and then being
true.
like, oh, I'm going to do it in the most expensive place on earth.
Yeah.
Like with more competition than anybody else.
For talent.
Yeah. Where nobody has an attention span longer than 8 minutes and is going to fly to anything that's shiny and new.
Yeah.
And the first sign of any kind of hiccup, like they're out.
Yeah.
Like the exact point at which you need people to just like double down and be like, we're going to get through this, they're gone. And it's just like, why would you do that to yourself? Like if you're there and you like understand the environment and that's where you're starting the business, cool.
Yeah, fine.
But like, why make things harder?
That's a good way to look at it. And vice versa. I've seen people in North America want to open up in Europe and they don't have the concentration. They open up an office here and I'm like, what are those people doing? Like, do you get on a plane? My buddy Jason opened up
The whole thing of hiring a local as well is, I think it's just like flawed. Like hire local people on the team, send a founder. Like sort of nobody's going to grind in the same way that they are. No one's going to like have the meetings, build the culture, like kind of do all of those things.
Yeah.
And like there is a certain credit that I think that you get through the authenticity of like just being there and not quite knowing what you're doing. Building a team around. That's how you did it in the early days. That's how you did it in the beginning, and you did pretty well. You did all right. Like you found a team. You found people who were going to come with you on that journey. I think the idea that you're going to hire like a head of EMEA, stick them in London or in Berlin, and then just be like, oh, cool. Now we've just doubled the business. Yeah. It's just naive.
And what have you learned? Building this team and competing against the other competitors, like how do you take that advice and I think I saw once you say when it's working, iterate around what's working, right? So like how did you guys, once you figured out who the core customer it was, how did you guys go deep, I guess, or how did you think about prioritization because you don't have all the resources in the world?
Yeah, I think it's just about focus. So
But what is focus? Focus is such a easy, you know what I mean?
It is.
It's easy to say like focus, but
it's like obsessive.
So what's your criteria filter for deciding what's in focus, out of focus?
I think talk to customers. Also, like sort of.
So step one, figure out who the customer is. Once you have that, work backwards from.
Yeah, and also sort of like the right revenue is a good driver of like knowing what to focus on.
Unpack that.
So there is the wrong. There is the wrong revenue, which is chasing.
That's a big idea, man.
Yeah.
Right revenue versus wrong revenue.
Yeah, like the chasing of a dollar because it's a dollar is wrong. The chasing of a dollar because it's the right dollar is the right thing to do. They're the right type of customer. They buy into this vision. Sort of, they're not buying the product on the basis of what the product is today. They're buying on the basis of what the product could be. Like chasing those dollars, I think, and then actually seeing some results. Sort of product market fit is this thing where everybody thinks that well, in my opinion, everybody thinks that sort of you have to have every box ticked for a certain type of or segment of customer. And it's just not true. Like the thing that you have to have ticked is enough stuff that they can get some value out of it today, but also enough boxes that are unticked that sort of actually the value of them buying that product is going to go up over time and not down. Like it's not going to diverge from what they thought it was going to be. So I think chasing those dollars, chasing those people who are going to buy into the vision, and this is sort of like the starting with the founder cell and things like that, and sort of building, kind of having those like charismatic conversations with people where kind of at the end of the day, they know that the product is going to be rougher than sort of you say that it is.
Yeah.
I think that's just a really powerful thing to focus on, really identifying those types of customers, having those conversations and telling them what it isn't going to be anytime soon. And if they're still willing to buy it anyway, chase that money. I think the caveat to that is understand when sort of you've gone narrow and you need to start going broader. Like that's one of the things that we didn't do.
What does that mean?
Like you mentioned like Flixel as a customer of ours. Flixel's a SaaS business, but they build this downloadable software, desktop software for the Mac. Great product, like really
Won
awesome.
awards from Apple, all that fun
like
stuff.
Such a good product. So we saw that it was working with those types of businesses. So it's desktop software, downloadable, but subscription-based, maybe for teams, for businesses products. So these are things like Flixel, this Framer you might have heard of. So businesses like that. And we were like, okay, like we're getting product market fit with these people. Let's go and really focus on that. They were the people who were buying the product not for what it is today, but what it could be in the future. And we, in the period of, I want to say 24 months, absolutely became the market leader, both by market share and by kind of just perception and everything. We became the default in that segment. People who were starting businesses would start them on Paddle. People who were using some other thing would switch to it, like even though that's a complete pain in the ass.
Yeah, it's huge.
It's horrible. But people were
worth it.
Like allocating time in their roadmaps to do this switch because they knew their business would be better.
Right move. Yeah.
And it was our full intention always to move to like broader kind of segments of SaaS businesses and things like that. But sort of, and I think the moment at which we knew that we should have done that but didn't act on it was when in the office, when someone would do a sales call or a demo, and we didn't celebrate when they won anymore, but we all huddled around their desk when they lost. And we were like, how the fuck did we lose that? Like,
sort of expected to win.
When it became expected that we would win a deal.
Such a great distinction.
Yeah, that was the moment at which we should have been like, okay, what's next?
Broad.
Like, it's not like we're going to kill that and not do anything.
No, but you're so
anymore.
right. I have clients that are like that they just feel like for this type of customer, we should win it.
Yeah.
So if you're there, start going,
figure
what's
out what the
number
next
2 and
thing
3?
is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the cycle, you might learn a bit and shortcut some of the learning stage of like, how do we get to a thing that we then want to go and try and pour fuel on and grow. But it's still going to be a longer cycle than people think. Like it's still going to take that 6, 12, 18 months to really get to a point where you know exactly how long it takes to onboard a new rep and get them to quota and sort of them do their first deals. And you can do that consistently. And you built the funnel and you've got all the marketing automation stuff figured out.
Yeah,
and
reference
sort of
all that stuff.
Yeah, all of that stuff. It's still going to take 12 months, 18 months.
Yeah.
So as soon as it becomes expected to win a deal for a certain type of segment, customer, competitor, geography, whatever it is, start thinking about the next one.
That's great advice. The go-to-market you guys use today, because you mentioned sales team and companies starting at 2K MRR. Do you segment? What's the process? Do you do kind of SMB, mid-market, enterprise sales, or do you guys? What's your approach?
We segment in two ways. So we segment on size. So we have SMB sales team, which are kind of focused on businesses doing up to, say, 25, 50K MRR.
Are they quota carrying salespeople?
Yep.
Okay.
We're thinking
I'm starting to see this trend. Are you thinking same thing?
We're thinking about experimenting with making them cohort based.
Okay.
So like you get 100 accounts.
Yep.
And you're responsible for the cohort
it's
accounts.
Like a CSM, like customer success manager.
But for new business as well as existing.
Yeah. I like that. It's better customer experience maybe.
Yeah, for sure. And we have basically zero churn.
And then, okay.
So we have lost 8 customers in 7 years. We have about 15.
If I had like a friggin' bomb, it's amazing.
He's like a
dropping bombs.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
130% kind of
no way.
Yeah, revenue retention,
dude. That's the number.
Churn in the basis points a year.
Yeah,
like
so really, it's just how do you scale that top of funnel?
Yeah. So we have SMB team. The rest of the sales team is mostly mid-market. So mid-market we define as between that like 50K MRR and I want to say like 500. And then we have key accounts, which is sort of 500 to 2 million MRR. And then we have enterprise, which is kind of just opportunistic. When these deals come up that we're excited about, we think.
Now, would they be switching off like a Zuora type thing?
Yeah. Zuora, quite a lot of like in-house sort of
custom.
Just like cobbled together, or they use like 3 different things because they have their own like SMBs on one thing, mid-markets on another, enterprises on another.
Yeah.
So a lot of that stuff.
So will they migrate one kind of segment at a time?
One segment at a time or one geo at a time if it's split up by geo.
And how does key accounts work? How do you guys think of key accounts? Like what's the experience from a go-to-market if I'm a customer in a key
we
account?
love data, like a lot. So basically we collect tons of data on the market. We have this thesis that sort of we are in the best industry in the world because SaaS businesses all want to talk about themselves, and quite a lot of them are selling to other SaaS businesses. So we have an internal project. It's got half a dozen people on it, which is basically to map every SaaS business in the world. So everyone that starts and all of the available metrics that we can get about every SaaS business in the world. Like from interviews on podcasts like these, we do some interesting stuff where we like speech to text them all and then kind of NLP all of the text to extract kind of information about the businesses and things like that.
Is this going to be for public?
No, we use it entirely internally.
To help other clients?
To help us in our go-to-market process, sometimes to help other clients to kind of inform, like some of the stuff that Patrick's doing, like how often do SaaS businesses change their pricing? Sort of how do people go international? What's the effect of opening a European office at a certain point on growth or fundraising or whatever it is? So we use all of that data to kind of inform sort of what we do. In terms of our go-to-market sales process, we're big on account-based marketing at scale. So account-based marketing to 2,000 or 3,000 companies at a time.
Yeah, named accounts.
Yeah.
And then do you guys do anything creative on the ABM side? Like any like cool bobblehead drops or whatever? Like, I don't know. I've seen some.
So we experiment with a bunch of stuff. So a bunch of paid marketing stuff, sort of lots of content, lots of really specific. We've started to experiment with really specific vertical content.
Yeah.
So like, here is resources for all of the design software companies, like really specific vertical stuff, webinars like and things like that around that.
Webinars,
and sort of experimenting with like the physical stuff as well. Usually you just get people on a call. Socks, puzzles, like that kind of stuff, which works pretty well. On the like, I think that stuff is way more valuable for retention than it is for acquisition. Sending somebody a thing on their birthday or their anniversary of signing up, like do that stuff. Like there's
somebody said the last mile isn't crowded.
Yeah.
Right? To go to last to do like still remember FreshBooks, the cake, right? On your birthday. Like just such a subtle thing.
For sure.
That means so much.
Like it's one of those things of like if you take I think it was like Jeff Bezos and like Amazon of like this idea that you can't invest too much in like delivery. Like if we can reduce delivery times,
customers will always want faster, more inventory.
No one is ever going to complain that they got their package too quickly.
Yeah.
And there are those same bets that you can make in like SaaS businesses.
Yeah.
Customer success is another one of those. Like no one's ever going to complain that they got too good support.
Too much service. Yeah.
And sort of like that, one of those things for us is support, but then it's also like billing infrastructure. Like billing infrastructure, no one is ever going to complain that we improved conversion or payment acceptance or reduced churn or kind of failed payments or like whatever that is.
That's the moat.
Like that's stuff that we don't really need to justify internally, like
Just make
our
it better.
investments in it. So I think that's also true for customer success as well.
When you think about because you mentioned the billing infrastructure and taxes and compliance, like, so there are some SaaS companies that I work with that have, legal frameworks that need to be true for their software. Like, how do you? Because it's not just a CRUD database with a front end web app. Like, it's you're dealing with stuff that's got to be like compliant and governance.
Yeah.
What's your Like, do you have a department assigned to this? How do you staff it? How do you protect yourself or protect your customers? Like, what do you call it internally? What's the compliance? Because I know like a Stripe would have this, right? Like risk or whatever.
So we have a risk and compliance team.
Okay.
That's like 12 people. Yeah. We have a finance team. And a finance team is kind of split in two. Like we have a finance team as any company would have a finance team.
For yourself.
Do payroll, like all of that stuff. And then we have a finance team, which is more like a product finance team.
Yeah.
Then in engineering, we have two teams we call billing and finance operations, which is 20 something people, who are only focused on that. And their customers are obviously, like as a team, their customers are obviously our like sellers, people selling on the platform, but they're also internal. Sort of like if we're going to release a new feature of like tax collection in a country, like we also have to be able to pay the taxes ourselves on behalf of all these companies. So they focus internally. And then like we're a big fan or have been a big fan of something we rolled out 12, 18 months ago, which were functionally focused operations teams. So we have commercial ops, which we call cops, which
that's cool.
Yeah, they have a theme song that's great
for sure.
It's like Bad Boys or something. Yeah. But sort of who work on tooling efficiency and everything. So they're like sales. They're like sales ops.
Yeah,
sort of
like dev, like rev ops. Yeah,
with
sales ops.
with actual engineering resource.
Okay, cool.
And that's part of like this software universe thing that we're building and things like that, which is kind of fueling a lot of our go-to-market stuff.
Yeah.
And then we have finance and risk ops, which is the same thing for finance and risk. We have support ops, which is the same thing for customer success and support.
Wow.
So like these,
so it's almost like back end layer of folks dedicated to efficiencies. And is it like the way I think about it is like front stage, backstage? These are people that are like the back of the stage.
These are the people who power the people.
Yeah. They make your frontline people more effective.
Yeah.
Better communication flows.
Yeah.
360 view of a customer, all that fun stuff.
How do you make so it makes you like it makes your teams a little bit bigger, but it's like how do you make your teams a little bit bigger in the short term to avoid them getting massive in the long term?
Yeah, by automation, data synchronization.
Because that's always going to be a point of contention with your like engineering team. It's like how do we do a Salesforce implementation? How do we implement outreach? How do we do whatever?
Yeah.
Same thing as like how do we implement NetSuite or like whatever.
I mean,
this tool
back
is.
in the day, like DevOps or dev tools, like, I mean, that's like, I think there's going to be a future where every company has developers designed to just make their, essentially what you said, functional, focused operations people say like for this area of the business, their engineering resources to make those people more productive. Yeah. Because it's their constraint is information flow or tooling.
Or even experience. Like it's the same reason that, it's the same, like, I hate the term because it's just so terrible, but like consumerization of the enterprise, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
It's like the idea that a decade ago, people bought NetSuite because the person buying NetSuite wasn't the person who had to use NetSuite because it was sort of
horrible,
a piece of shit.
Yeah.
It's probably not, but like the experience for people using it was. And that's the reason why and I think this will continue to be a trend, SaaS products in businesses being bought bottom up rather than top down. Like that's how Slack is bought. That's how sort of all of these other tools
land
are bought.
and expand.
Yeah. And sort of that's also same for process. Like I think we're having that shift in process as well. Like gone are the days, going are the days where you have
throw people at it.
You throw people at it. Like you have a dozen people who sit in spreadsheets.
It's just a brilliant way of saying, look, it's going to be a little it's going to be a bit people heavy today.
Yeah.
But the bet is over the next 3 to 5 years.
Yes. What's the upfront versus incremental cost of doing this?
Yeah.
Like the upfront cost is high, incremental cost becomes incredibly low. It's sort of like, it's kind of how I feel about sort of, everybody defines it slightly differently, but kind of how I feel about SDRs. Like it's sort of, I think there is, like, why not focus those people's energy on the things that actually matter rather than doing like lead research?
Yeah.
Like invest in tooling and engineering resource and and data science and things like that to enable those people and equip them with the data that they need to do their job. Don't make them go and get the data.
Where do you think, I mean, I've seen stuff, maybe you have better data and you think there's no issue, but it seems like there's something happening in the markets right now, a bit of a correction, there's, whatever the markets are doing, what they're doing. How do you think that's going to affect SaaS? Like if there's another recession, I don't know if I have any data specifically on B2B SaaS companies, 2008, 2001, it wasn't really as big of a thing as it is today. What do you anticipate would happen to either your customers or to that market as a whole? Is it recession proof because a lot of these B2B tools are back end workflow tools, or do you think
I think there are a bunch of tools
like Martell for sure.
Yeah, there's a bunch of tools that exist to make businesses more efficient. I think they'll be fine.
Yeah.
I also think the thing that we're obviously in SaaS. Like we get it. We know all these people. We come to conferences and we do all these things. And we talk to these people and they're all tech people. They're all raising money and doing all this stuff. And maybe it'll get harder to raise money, or maybe the markets will be a little bit less liquid and there won't be as many acquisitions and things like that. Or the ones that we do see will be cheaper. And maybe it's not cheaper. Maybe it's about the right price that it should be.
Yeah.
But I think one of the things that we miss is sort of like the end value chain of who is buying these products. In a lot of cases, like there are a handful of people who are selling to other people who build these products. So people like us, we're selling to SaaS companies. But a lot of these tools aren't just sold to SaaS as an industry, they're sold to others, which I think is helpful from a diversification perspective of like, you don't have like funding drives up in tech and then thus all the customers do as well. But it's also like, okay, if it's like real estate that hits or financial services or whatever that hits, like there are probably a handful of companies who are focused on those industries that quite frankly might be fucked. Like
that's fair.
It happens. The service providers people and the suppliers of those things, they're going to stop buying and things like that. But I think majority of SaaS is pretty well diversified in terms of
it's a beautiful business model.
Yeah. Recurring revenue, you focus on customers, sort of you align value that you're providing with how they're paying.
Yeah.
I think we'll probably get squeezed on valuations. I don't actually think there'll be a funding crunch per se. I think that the funding will get more picky.
Yeah. But I mean, it's they look at the economics. It's like it's a CAC payback period, how fast you want to grow. Like, I mean, it's pretty.
That stuff's still going to exist. And I think the things, I think it actually might even be beneficial. Like a bunch of companies will die. Yeah. They'll be the unsustainable, unhealthy from a metrics perspective companies.
I've been I don't know if you know Kara Schwisser and Scott. Oh my gosh. They've been on Pivot, this podcast. They've been just talking about the WeWork stuff and the Uber. And they go, he goes, it's like pets.com. Like I love buying a bag of, for my dog at $8 that was, cost them 20. Like that's great business.
Yeah, of course.
It's not sustainable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that a handful of these businesses will die, but for the good ones, there will still be funding available. Yeah. All of these, the funds that are investing, they've already raised the money. They still have to put it somewhere.
Yeah.
Like the billions of dollars in VC money that's been raised in the last 3 years still has to go somewhere. It's not all deployed. So it's just going to get picky about where it goes.
Yeah. So you're going to look for companies that are more investable and maybe have stronger economics. Christian, one question I love to ask as we wrap up is, over the last, 2013, you've been building the company?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like as a CEO, 160 people, 140?
Somewhere around there.
Yeah, because you probably keep hiring every week. Who have you had to become to be the CEO of this company today?
That's a good question. And I actually think it's a good question because I feel like at some point in that I became sort of like what I thought I should be rather than what I needed to be. I've like went from a place of being first-time founder or second-time founder, but first-time founder of building a company rather than a business, like hiring people and stuff, to like through that stage that we were talking about earlier about, okay, it's difficult to hire managers and do this stuff. I think I became like a little bit less product focused, a little bit less customer focused and kind of all these things. And I think sort of double down on strengths, like double down on the things that you're good at and things that you want to do. I think I did a little bit I think I swerved a little bit too far away from that and kind of now course correcting.
When we say swerved away from being close to the customer or focus on the product and got too much CEO-ing? Or?
Yeah, I think I focused too much on what I thought a CEO should be.
Instead of what you felt
where I could add the most value. Yeah. So I think continue doing the thing where you can add the most value, and that's sort of what I'm doing now. And
then backfill for those areas that need to still get done.
Yeah. Why would you spend time doing the thing that you don't want to do or you're not very good at?
Especially if you're the founder.
Yeah.
Because you get to decide.
Yeah, I'm sure you're going to have like a good chunk of your time that's going to be doing the shitty things that no one else wants to do, but that's life. That's why eventually, hopefully, you make more money than anyone else in the building. Like sort of, like there are going to be those things. There's going to be painful stuff. All shit floats. Like
you're accountable for everything. Yeah. There's disproportionate, and there's a reason why.
Yeah, exactly. But that doesn't mean that you should just make it harder, like as you go. If you don't like doing finance,
like a martyr. Yeah.
If you don't like doing finance, don't do finance. Hire somebody who can do finance. If you don't like doing sales, don't do sales. Doesn't mean you shouldn't talk to customers, but it means that maybe if you don't think you're the best person at selling to them, don't sell to them. Like pick the things that you're good at. If you're going to add more value, not going to a conference and staying back and helping the team work on a new thing, go do that and figure out who's the best person to go to the conference. To the event.
Yeah. That's wise advice. Christian, where do people find you online?
So I was banned from Twitter.
Yeah, you're not very active.
I'm recently back on Twitter. So it's Christian B. Owens on Twitter.
How'd you get banned?
I really wish there was an exciting story. I wish I said something like incendiary and pissed someone off. Okay. I was too young when I signed up. And then I put my like birthday in, and they were just like, nope.
Oh shit!
Yeah. So be careful of that. Otherwise, it's paddle.com. I'm Christian at paddle.com. If people want to email me.
Oh, cool. They will. Dude, I could talk to you for days. Awesome. Appreciate you so much, man. Thanks for watching this episode of Escape Velocity. Be sure to like and subscribe and leave a comment with your biggest insight from our conversation. Be sure to check out the next episode.